Hey guys, welcome to Learn Today IGCSE. This is the part 2 of the video from October-November 2024 variant 4.2. Question 6. A student plays the violin near the doorway to a large room. Figure 6.1 shows a young teacher standing where he can hear the sound but cannot see the student, which is over here. Question A, Part 1. State the wave effect that allows the young teacher to hear the sounds from the violin at the position he is standing in Figure 6.1. Sound wave is a longitudinal wave. As it travels through a gap, the wave will diffract. And that's how it reaches the teacher who is standing in this position. So the effect is diffraction. Part 2. Calculate the frequency of sound with a wavelength of 0.75 meter. The speed of sound in air is 340 meters per second. So the formula related to wavelength, speed of sound, and frequency is speed equals to frequency times lambda. Lambda represents the wavelength. So rearranging this formula to calculate frequency would be speed over wavelength. Just make sure that the speed and wavelength are in standard unit, and the frequency in two significant figures would be 450. The unit is hertz. Question Part 3. A violin produces sound in the frequency range 200 Hz to 3800 Hz. The width of the open doorway is 0.75 meters. Explain why the young teacher hears the frequency calculated in A Part 1 clearly but finds a frequency of 3500 Hz much harder to hear. The frequency calculated in A Part 2 is 450 Hz, and the one which is much harder to hear is 3500 Hz. Now, a higher frequency means the wavelengths are closer to each other. So if the wavelengths are closer to each other, in comparison with the size of gap which is much larger than the wavelength, it will cause the wavelength to diffract lesser. Therefore, it will be harder to reach this teacher in this position. So the higher the frequency, the smaller the wavelength. The lower the frequency, the wider the wavelength. Remember that if the wavelength is larger or equal to the gap, there will be more diffraction. But if the wavelength is much smaller than the gap, then the diffraction would be much lesser. Next question, Part B. A plane mirror is placed at point X so that the teacher can see the student. On Figure 6.1, draw a light ray from the violin to point X and from point X to the teacher. Draw and label the mirror, and then add an arrow to the ray to show how the teacher sees the student. So we'll place a mirror and label it at point X. The image of the student will travel in a straight line and gets reflected on the mirror to the teacher in a straight line. Remember that for reflection, the angle of incidence is going to be equal to the angle of reflection. You can just write I equals to R. Next, we'll jump into question 8 first, and then I will do question 7 next because this is the same topic as question 6. A fisherman uses high-frequency sound waves to locate fish in the sea. Figure 8.1 shows the sound waves emitted from the boat. State the name of sound waves which have a frequency greater than 20 kHz, which is equivalent to 20,000 Hz. Under the topic 3.4 sound, you must know that ultrasound is a sound with a frequency higher than 20,000 Hz. So this would be ultrasound. Next, question B. High-frequency sound waves travel from the boat through the sea water. The speed of sound in water is 1,500 meters per second and the seabed is 22 meters below the boat. So the sound is traveling at a speed of 1,005 meters per second and the depth is around 22 meters. Okay, we are asked to calculate the time taken for the boat to receive the reflected wave from the seabed after the sound is emitted. So we would like to know how much time is taken for it to reach the bottom of the seabed and then reflects back. So that means it traveled 22 meters downwards and 22 meters upwards. So the total distance would be 22 times 2, which is 44 meters. To calculate time when given speed and distance, we can use the formula of speed equals to distance. And rearranging it, we will get time equals to distance over speed. So the distance is 22 times 2 as it goes down and then get reflected up. And the speed is 1,500 meters per second. So the answer is 0.029 seconds. Next, question C. Figure 8.2 shows a fish below the boat. Describe and explain how the reflected sound wave received by the boat from the fish differs from the reflected sound received from the seabed. Okay, meaning to say that there are some wave which hits the fish and get reflected back to the boat, and some wave that hits the bottom of the seabed and get reflected to the boat. Since fish are very small, the wave that get reflected back is going to be very little, whereas the seabed is very broad and wide, so they will receive much more reflection after hitting the seabed. So that's how you can differentiate whether it's being reflected by a small object or by the depth of the sea. Next, question 7. A washing machine has an electric motor and electric heater. This is the motor and this is the heater. And this is the ammeter to measure the current. Figure 7.1 shows a simplified circuit diagram for the washing machine. The heater has a resistance of 25 ohm and the power supply has an electromotive force of 230 voltage. Question part A. State the meaning of electromotive force. Any definition can be obtained in your syllabus. It has been mentioned here that EMF can be defined as the electrical work done by a source in moving a unit charge around a complete circuit. Next, question B. State the potential difference across the heater. So we are looking to find the potential difference, which is the value of the voltage across this heater. The type of circuit that we have here is a parallel circuit. You must know that current, when flowing in a parallel circuit, let's say it's 5 ampere here, it will split to 2.5 and 2.5 ampere if the resistance of the components are equal. However, potential difference, if the electromotive force is 230 voltage, then it will be the same throughout the entire circuit. And for series circuit, it's the opposite. So since this is a parallel circuit and the EMF is 230 voltage, then the heater will also receive 230 voltage. Next, calculate the current in the heater. So the heater has a potential difference of 230 voltage and a resistance of 25 ohm. We can use Ohm's law, which is voltage equals to current times resistance, to find the current, which is 9.2, and the units are ampere. Please do not forget your units in your final answer. Next, question D. The current in the motor is 1.6 amperes. Determine the reading on the ammeter in figure 7.1 and explain your answer. Okay. So the current flowing through the motor is 1.6 ampere and the current flowing through the heater as we obtained previously is 9.2 ampere. The rule states that in a parallel circuit, the current will split. This means that at this junction, the current has split to 9.2 ohms into this line and another 1.6 ampere to this line. So if they flow here and then this comes back to this junction, both their current would combine and flow through the ammeter. So the current that is flowing through the ammeter would be 9.2 amperes adding with 1.6 ampere. So the reading of the ammeter would be 10.8 ampere and this is your explanation. Next, question 9. Figure 9.1 shows a wireless charging plate used to charge the battery in a mobile phone. The coil of wire is a part of an electric circuit. So these are the coil of wire. The charging plate is connected to an AC power supply. AC power supply means the current will flow in both directions. It can go in this direction and also flow in this direction. And the power supply is turned on. Question E. Describe the magnetic field around the charging plate in terms of magnitude and direction. Okay, remember that current influences magnetic field. The higher the current, the higher the magnetic field. The lower the current, the lower the magnetic field. And if the direction of the current is changing, so will the direction of the magnetic field. So we can say that the magnetic field around the charging plate constantly changes since the current is constantly changing. As for the direction, according to your right-hand Fleming rule, the direction of magnetic field is perpendicular to the direction of current. So as the flow of current changes, so will the magnetic field. Question B. A mobile phone is placed on the charging plate as shown in figure 9.2. The coil in the mobile phone is a part of a separate circuit that charges the battery. So this is a secondary coil and it comes separately of a separate circuit. The coil in the charging plate, which is this one, and the coil in the mobile phone, which is this one, they act like a transformer. So transformer usually have a primary coil and secondary coil. Question part 1. Explain why there is a current in the secondary coil shown in figure 9.2. So the principle is the same as a transformer. Make sure you are familiar with the principle of transformer. Here is a 4-mark explanation on the operation of a step-down transformer. You can use the same explanation for step-up as well. It's just that the difference of step-up is that the primary coil is lesser than the secondary coil. So you can take a screenshot or copy these for future references. Back to part 2, suggests why the transformer made from charging plate and mobile phone is not 100% efficient. Whenever asked about efficiency, I would always suggest you guys to talk about losing the energy to the surrounding through thermal energy lost. Next question, part C. The mobile phone battery can be recharged using the charging plate and stores 4.5 times 10 to the power of 4 joules of energy. The current in the secondary coil is 0.63 amperes when the output voltage is 12. Calculate the time taken to fully recharge completely an uncharged battery. So we are looking to find time. The formula related to voltage, energy, current, and time is energy equals to voltage times current times time. Remember that physics is largely calculation based, so be sure that you have memorized every formula in the syllabus. I've made a video on this, so make sure you check it out and memorize them. And make sure that your units are all in standard units. Rearranging this, we will get 6,000 and the unit for time is seconds. Next, calculate the charge passing through the battery in 60 seconds. So the formula for charge is current times time. We already have current, which is 0.63, and the time is 60 seconds. The charge will be 38 and the unit for charge is coulomb, which is capital C. Next, question 10. Carbon-14 is a radioactive isotope of carbon. Carbon-12 is not radioactive. Question A. Explain how an atom of carbon-14 differs from an atom of carbon-12. As you can see here, they have the same proton number but different nucleon number. Nucleon number is a total of neutron plus proton. So they have the same proton but different neutron, hence this is 14 and this is 12. Next question, part B. All living organisms contain both carbon-12 atoms and carbon-14 atoms. The ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12 is 1 to 1 times 10 to the power of 12. Carbon-14 has a half-life of 5,700 years. When an organism dies, no new carbon is absorbed. The amount of carbon-12 in the dead organism remains fixed. Describe how the amount of carbon-14 in the dead organism decreases with time. Now, what causes an isotope for an element to be radioactive is when there is excess of neutrons in the nucleus. So the nucleus is too heavy. In order for it to become stable, the element will reduce to become half, and the time taken for this is what you call as half-life. So every 5,700 years, the number of atoms will reduce by half. So the number of carbon-14 will decrease over time. Next, part 2, a sample of wood contains carbon-14 to carbon-12 atoms in the ratio of 1 to 4 times 10 to the power of 12. Calculate how many years ago the tree died. So we've got carbon-14 to carbon-12, which is in this ratio. And now it has become 1 to 1 times 10 to the power of 12. The half-life is 5,700 years. So let's find out how many times it has reduced from here to become this. When it becomes half, it reduces to 2 times 10 to the power of 12, and another half reduces to 1 times 10 to the power of 12. So each time it gets half, the time taken is 5,700 years. So the total time taken here is 11,400 years ago. Next, question C. Other radioactive isotopes have different half-lives. Suggest a use of radioactive isotope with half-life of 1 hour. So 1 hour is a very short time. Explain why a short half-life is suitable for this use. Usually we use a very short half-life, for instance medical traces, which is put into our body. And the reason why we have a very short half-life is because we do not want the radioactive isotope to be inside of our body for a long time, as it is unsafe for us. Last question, 11, part A. State the name of one planet that has an orbit further away from the Sun than Venus. So you can name any planet after Venus. Question part 2. State the name of one planet that has an orbit closer to the Sun than Venus. So that would be the planet Mercury. Question B. Venus has an average radius of orbit 1.1 times 10 to the power of 11 meters and an orbital period of 220 Earth days. Calculate the average orbital speed of Venus. So the radius from the center of the Sun to Venus is 1.1 times 10 to the power of 11 meters, and it takes 220 days to complete one orbit. The formula to calculate the orbital speed, 2 pi r over time. The radius has been already given us in meters, but the speed is in meters per second, so we have to change the time taken here from days into seconds by multiplying with hours, minutes, and seconds. Just put all this value in your calculator and you will get 3.6 times 10 to the power of 4. The unit is meters seconds. Question C. State the relationship between the orbital speeds of the planet and their distances from the Sun. The further the distance of planet with the Sun, the slower the orbital speed. Question D. Comets are balls of ice and dust. Some comets orbit the Sun. State how the speed of a comet changes as it orbits the Sun. Explain your answer using ideas about the conservation of energy. You may include a labeled diagram in your answer. Now, a comet usually orbits the Sun in an elliptical orbit, which looks like this. So at a certain point of the orbit, it will travel closer to the Sun. As it travels closer to the Sun, its kinetic energy increases, and it kind of moves very fast that it slingshots the comet. And as it goes further away from the Sun, the gravitational potential energy will increase. And this reduces the kinetic energy. And as it travels closer to the Sun, the gravitational potential energy decreases. However, their total will always remain the same, and that's how energy is conserved. Alright guys, thank you for watching. For the next video, I'll be solving Chemistry Paper 4.2 from October-November 2024.